Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking with Portland Mayor Keith Wilson about how things are going nearly halfway through his term. I'm your host, Claudia Meza, and we're going to be chatting about his efforts to keep the Blazers in Portland and addressing growing homelessness, plus why police response times are climbing to a historic high. On top of other things, we like to chat. For one, Keith, we recently put out an episode where we listed the most overrated and underrated Portland summer activities. And amongst ourselves, there were some fighting words. We thought maybe street fairs were a little overrated. We thought maybe swimming at Sauvie Island was a little overrated. And picnics, just underrated, a little overlooked. I'm curious what your most overrated, underrated Portland summer activity is.
I love this question.
Okay.
So this is going to create proponents and opponents all in one sentence. The naked bike ride, which was Saturday night.
Overrated or underrated?
It was both. I mean, it was underrated. Oh my God, it was massive. It went on forever, and it took up a whole park, which was near my home. And my entire neighborhood came out to watch, to be a part of. So underrated because it was huge. Overrated only because I think people get over their skis thinking that it's not Portland. I think Naked Bike Ride brings in so much attention to Portland, and it's really, for the most part, positive.
Interesting. I like what you did there. You should run for office. Yeah, you should run for office. You're good at
It was. Now I won't use a pun, but I'm going to leave that alone. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, recently, like last week, you broke a tie in city council. It was the first time in history of our new city government that a mayor had to step in to do so, and it really upset a few councilors. The vote was over an ordinance that would preserve city jobs and reverse some public safety cuts from the budget you had initially submitted. And there were two proposals for how to do that. You voted for the proposal that would require significantly less money to fund, but also save less city jobs, and also funded itself by using general fund contingency dollars, which would then be backfilled by using unspent money across the city, with a prediction that the largest chunk would come out of the city's new Office of Community-Based Police Accountability. This was the point of contention in the city council. The other proposal is brought forth by Peacock, which is like the self-proclaimed progressive side of council. And they were saying, hey, let's use interest accrued by the Portland Clean Energy Community Fund, or PCEF. And you've made public statements saying that you were against PCEF being rated. Not in particular about this proposal, but you've said it in the past. And you chose the other proposal. Part of me was wondering, is it because they're using PCEF money? I'm not sure, how you chose which proposal to back. But I'm curious, if it was about PCEF, what is it about? I feel like everyone's guarding PCEF and funds, but at the same time always has their own intentions on how to use that funds, because I know you're hoping to partially pay for the Moda Center renovations using PCEF fund, not the interest, but the actual fund. How do you think funding the Moda Center renovations fits the mission of that fund that's supposed to support clean energy projects, reduce carbon emissions, and build climate resilience among Portland's most vulnerable residents? Is a stadium really the best thing we can use this money for?
Okay. A lot of threads in that question.
Right?
So, going back to your original point regarding the ordinances that were before council, we have a significant budget gap in the city. And so for 2 years, I've had to address deficits over $100 million. And our CFO has put us on a crisis stabilization program. It's a 5-year program, so we get out of this cut cycle. If we would have voted to take the PCEF or funding for future earnings, right? We're borrowing against future revenue to fund gaps today, and we have to address the crisis response today. So keeping people on staff today that we can't afford, essentially, isn't financially responsible. And so I voted down that one. The charter gives me tie-breaking authority. I was brought in to just yield that charter mandate. The second one was going to take unspent funds, which we anticipate this year, to make public safety investments. And so we move forward. I was grateful that Councillor Clark and Councillor Smith brought that forward. And that was to just backfill some public safety cuts that I had to make in the budget. Now, the next question was really, where does PCEF come in as far as MODA? you hit it on the head. So long as it's carbon emissions reductions, it's building economic viability in our community, it's building resiliency, and then we're focusing on priority populations. That is the PSEF pillars. And if we can apply that in MODA, when you think about electrical microgrid, battery storage, and then thinking about caring for that community, if we have an earthquake or something, making MODA resilient to help our community members come in. We're upgrading HVAC systems and so on and so forth. So long as the PSEF committee, who makes the decision, would vote for those pillars to be met, then we're going to meet the PSEF mandate. But I'm not a proponent of going outside of the PSEF mandate. And you hit those pillars perfectly when you're posed your question.
Yeah, talking about the proposal, whatever, I know that Peacock's was like really high because it was saving more jobs, but they weren't dipping into the actual PSEF fund. They were using the interest. You're saying it's a contingency, but that's what you guys are doing. I mean, the other proposal was also a contingency, but I am curious. You said something about like how you would make the MODA Center fit the PSEF pillars. And what I'm hearing is you're like thinking about maybe making it like an emergency meeting point for
one of the pillars
for disasters and stuff.
Yeah, for one of the pillars is resiliency. And so having battery backup, having a microgrid, having solar powered and be able to retain that power on site. So if we do have a catastrophic event in Portland, we want to be able to use these facilities as backup to care for our community. So that's that resilience pillar that you brought up.
Gotcha. That's one pillar. All right. Well, if the PSEF board doesn't go for it, what are the alternative funding sources?
Yeah, you're looking at bonding as one of your main funding tools, which is essentially what the state is doing with their $356 million. We are looking at contingencies. We're working with our county commission partners right now. We're working with our counselors, and we're all coming up with different scenarios on what would happen and how would we use it. So we're looking at kind of a check down, if you will. We'll work it with PSEF to make sure it fits the mandate. We'll go through the committee there. Absent that, we'll determine how much money is necessary. We're looking at business license tax, essentially the capital gains from the purchase, just plowing that back into the arena. So we have several different segments to use. And then we have some small amounts from Prosper Portland, which is economic development, which fits that mandate as well. So we've got a host of different areas to look at.
Do you know where PSEF is right now, the PSEF board with the MODA Center? Have they shown their cards at all with how they're going to lean or how they're thinking about this? Communications between you guys?
Initially, it was positive. However, we don't have anything written down on paper, specifically what it would go for. We're waiting for the renovation specs on the MODA. And then once we get that, we'll have a meaningful way to look at what fits the pillars, and we'll be able to make that decision.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, let's talk more MODA Center renovations. So one of the biggest challenges you're facing so far in your mayoral term, and there have been many, are these ongoing MODA Center renovation negotiations with the Blazers. The implicit threat is that if the owner and his management team doesn't agree to favorable terms, he's taking his ball and he's leaving town. So you have the governor and 24 other mayors from Portland metro region all breathing down your neck about keeping the Blazers from walking. When we talked with Councilor Angelita Murillo, she said she was prepared to lose the Blazers if the city didn't get a fair deal. Are you prepared to lose the Blazers if Dundon and his partners keep refusing the city's terms?
Wow, that's a question that is just not good for our community. We have to start focusing on economic development, and we have to be able to be a city that can do big things well. I can't fathom losing the Blazers because they've been a part of our community for generations. So I want to really approach that question on what does the city look like with the Blazers and what does the cities look like without the Blazers? Because essentially that's what you had asked for. Let's talk about the negative aspects. So just the Blazers, they bring in 2/3 of the revenue of the Rose Quarter, about $500 million a year. So that would be gone. Those 5,000 jobs would be gone. The MODA would then become a quiet, hulking mass that needs to be renovated that we're not going to have the funding to do it well with. Because if the Blazers leave, we lose the state funding And so we're not able to renovate it. So let's look at this city. We have the Broadway corridor, which is just west of the Broadway Bridge. That's 30 acres of dirt that we don't have people investing in. We're going to demo the Lloyd Center next month. There's another 30 acres of dirt that we don't even have an investment plan on that now. And in the middle would be the Moda Center. You would have a Broadway corridor, which is essentially a dead zone in Portland that's not focused on building or bringing back the lower Albina area, which is an area that we disinvested over generations as well. You lose the Blazers, you lose all the funding, the renovation, the excitement, the brand is diminished. We're no longer a national brand or an international brand with the Blazers as the ambassador. I just see negatives. And so I'd say for the city putting in $120 million, not having to build $1 or $2 billion new arena, we get to keep what we already have and then build upon it. And it creates a national narrative of renaissance. If we lose the Blazers, we just fit into this national narrative that we can't do big things in Portland. And it just puts us back 5, 10, 15 years. So I'm not prepared to lose the Blazers. And I think it's important for us all to think about job growth and population growth instead of the reverse, which is job loss and population loss, which is what we've been experiencing for 5 years. Those days need to come to an end. And the Blazers can help be one of the crowns in that jewel as we move the city and our state forward.
Do you think
Right.
that Tom Dundon is bluffing? Because I heard that we have a deal, we have a lease, they can't really leave technically for at least a handful of years. Like, are you believing it? Is this a real threat?
Yeah, it's absolutely a real threat. And we have to take it seriously. If we go into this thinking that we should use brinkmanship and we lose the Blazers and they leave, then we would have missed an opportunity. It's not a threat. You see, we have investors looking at Portland and they are doing what's called a 5-year look back. We did not do well this last 5 years. They don't see the improvements we've made in the last 5 months or in the last 18 months. And with that said, people are reluctant to invest in Portland. So now you see the hope in the community now, Claudia. I do on my drives. I've been talking to a lot of people. We need to explain to Dundon and others that Portland is a city on the rise. We had 50 years of growth. We need to get back to it. But for us to go into this and think that this is a bluff, it's brinkmanship, and then we were to lose the Blazers, I think it would be irresponsible of me. So we need to take this very seriously. This is a threat. We need to do big things well. And I'll continue to talk about a sense of urgency. Let's meet this moment. And the cost, while $120 million is significant, I recognize that. I look at the alternative. We lose, we're forced to wait 15 years to get another NBA team. Then it comes with a $2 billion price tag for a new arena. We have a wonderful arena in Moda that we bought for $1. We have the state who wants to invest 2/3 of the funds. We have a county who wants to partner with us for $100 million or so. And we're into $120 million. I see this as an opportunity to continue our renaissance, not to continue to make excuses to investors around the nation that Portland isn't a good bet. We are a good bet. I'm leaning in on that to everybody I talk to across the nation.
Right. Anonymous sources from the Blazers management team, RIP City Management, have been quoted as saying the term sheet your office sent over on July 16th was a non-starter. Some of the terms included benefits for the surrounding Albina community, as you've mentioned, and an agreement to work with the staff if they chose to unionize. Those were among a few of the terms. Now, what are some of your non-starters in the negotiation?
Well, let's go back to January, February, and March. We worked with the NBA, the commissioner, and we determined what a market rate facility would look like. What's the cost? And we met what their goals were. And then we had it verified by a third-party consultant, an independent third-party consultant. We're right in where we need to be. That term sheet recognizes what our goals were in March. We've delivered on what the NBA commissioner and the NBA required. And Tom Dundon supported that commitment in March as well. So we're going to deliver on our commitment. No more, no less. But in the end, Portland's a union town. Tom Dundon bought a team in Portland, and it's the Portland Trailblazers. These are the things that come along with our values. Having strong labor agreements, focusing on reinvesting in Lower Albina. These are things that we were focused on from the very beginning in our core values. I think it's to be expected. So I don't think we have any non-starters. We are delivering a term sheet that we all agreed to ostensibly in March, but it's time for us to come to the table and get going. This is only the first step, the first quarter. It's not the end, and the council will be able to vote on a final lease in December, but we've got to focus on a sense of urgency and get going. And if it's a non-starter, let's start talking. Let's sit down. Let's do the hard, important work. These are hard discussions, but we got to talk.
So are you saying that you are willing to trade, let's say, investment in the albino community or the union guarantee for a contract with the Blazers? You're saying you have no non-starters.
Now, we met the spirit of the commitment in March. That term sheet is that spirit. We're already close to an agreement. We just need to sit down and start hashing out the details. But negotiating away union standards, negotiating away commitments to a community that has been impacted for generations isn't really something we can negotiate away. And I don't think Portland is expecting us to. And I don't think the NBA commissioner or Tom Dundon would expect us to.
Right. Well, you said that the city council has a chance to vote yet again on the term sheet. So some city council members spoke out after the initial term sheet was delivered, saying they were not informed it was going to be shared with RIP City management and that they still had issues with the terms. Basically like, hey, I thought we were still talking about this. For example, Councilor Steve Novick doesn't think the $3 million annual payment from RIP City management is high enough. Now, I'm just curious, like, why was the term sheet delivered without the full support of the council, even if it was initial? What miscommunication happened there?
Yeah, and I do believe there was miscommunication. We are moving fast, but I want you to know it is July. We started and had the commitment in March. We're already behind the 8 ball. We only have 4 months left to get a lease agreement determined. 4 months to do a 300-page document. Are there miscues? Should we have communicated? We did not expect the executive session we had to seek input from the counselors to go as long as it did. And there were a lot of unanswered questions, but we still have to get moving. We have an August 12th vote. And we took the conversation that we had with the counselors and some of their concerns, which we agreed to, and we put them into the term sheet. We made the changes and we forwarded it over to the RIP City management. But again, this is only the beginning, Claudia. There's going to be changes through this next 4 months. This is not a firm term sheet where it's the end. It's only the beginning of the discussion.
Right. But wouldn't you want, just for appearance, because it's negotiations, no matter what, it's psychological in a sense. Wouldn't you want RIP City management to see y'all united as opposed to infighting? Wouldn't that be a stronger foot forward? I understand it's a back and forth. And for what I'm hearing is either, and I'm speaking about your administration, was just like, you know what, we got to get going. This is going to take too long. Here's the term sheet. Most of the stuff you wanted is on. Let's move forward. Yeah. We'll address this later. So that doesn't sound like miscommunication. That just sounds like you guys were like, we just got to push. Let's forward.
Yeah.
That's your right. You did that. But like now we have all of this media going on about the city councilors saying, hey, we're upset, digging their heels. I don't think this looks that great for the other side of the table. What do you think about that? Like, should we perhaps lock in a little bit?
No, we're never going to get consensus, Claudia. We have 12 counselors with different perspectives, opinions, and focus, and we have to respect that. We have 5 county commissioners with that same thing. So, I mean, we have 17 elected officials that we're working to provide the best term sheet we can. In the end, I'd love to think we're going to get to unanimous support, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Nor do I think it's that point in which we need unanimous support. So long as we have a majority of the council to move forward, it's just the first step, but we got to get to the table and begin negotiating. We cannot continue to delay. That's why we set the August 12th date. We need to have a finality. Either the council is going to vote affirmative. We want to continue the discussion as well as the county commission. If they vote to deny it, to shoot it down, then we have clear guidance that we're not moving forward with the renovation, but we need clear guidance from the council. Are they for the renovation and the discussions to continue, or are they not? I believe there's a majority of councilors who support us moving to the next step in the negotiation.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, let's talk Portland police. There have been a couple of high profile incidents in the past few months demonstrating slow police response times to 911 calls. One involving a man sexually and physically assaulting several women, even putting one in a chokehold at Council Crest Park. And this is even after four separate 911 calls. Portland police took 31 minutes to respond to the scene. There was another, this was, oh God, this was awful. There was an attempted kidnapping of a 7-year-old girl at Waterfront Park by a naked man. Even more,
Yeah.
just like, they were tourists. They were tourists. So, not that it would be better if she was from here, but I'm just saying, like, geez, you know? So, bystanders stepped in to intervene, reported police took 30 plus minutes for them to arrive. This is after our wait time for 911 operators for their response time has decreased significantly. So onlookers have noted that police staffing has stayed consistent for the past several years. And so they're speculating other reasons for slower response times. And now our city is again rife with rumors about the blue flu. Now, what do you think is the real reason behind these slower than normal response times by our police?
Yeah, first of all, let's just be very clear. 911 response times is a priority that I have because anybody who is in need needs that support. So that's the first thing. And anytime I hear one of those events at Council Crest, Waterfront Park, or a sexual assault on 92nd Avenue last week, I went out to that community yesterday. Those are things that are deeply concerning for our neighbors, our tourists, me as well. So we're committed to focusing on that. I want to dispel the comment on blue flu. There's no blue flu. I'm out there working with officers, PSR, AMR, fire every single week. And we have a great group of public safety specialists and response teams working their best to care for Portlanders. I don't see anybody not moving to the work. But Claudia, we have a significant staffing shortage. We have 809 sworn officers. And on any given day, we only have about 326 patrol officers that are available. There are shifts that go understaffed by up to 8 to 9 patrol officers on a particular shift. And then when we have a major event, a shooting, a major vehicle accident, somebody barricaded in an apartment, those take a lot of resources from all 3 precincts sometimes, leaving our patrol officers understaffed on our streets. We are committed to increasing our staffing levels. During the budget, we talked about the budget a moment ago. One of the key tenets in the budget is, as I explained to our budget writers, that we were not going to reduce a single patrol officer or investigators, and we were going to continue our hiring and recruitment. We have 90 recruits currently in training. However, they have to go out with another officer, but they will be fully trained. It takes about 18 months. We are committed. The chief is committed. Our city administrator, we are committed to increasing staffing to bring call response times down.
So you just spoke about the conversation that Portland police does not have enough police officers, and that has been documented. We're one of the cities with the lowest, police ratio, police per person ratio. But this enhanced community safety measure, as it's being called, which is this ballot measure that got enough signatures, I'm pretty sure it's going to make it to November's ballot here. Now, they would take 25% of the PSEF annual revenue, which we've already discussed the pillars for that, to hire more officers and provide training. Now, that's roughly $50 million. Are you backing this ballot measure?
I'm not backing the ballot measure. Claudia, I get asked this, and this is a false choice. Our Portland Clean Energy Fund is a international model of a city focusing on emissions reduction, priority populations, resiliency, all the things you talked about at the top of the show. We need to continue to invest in our Clean Energy Fund. However, it doesn't mean that we choose between public safety, basic public services, and emissions. We need to do both. We have to find a way to fund both. I'm not supporting one direction or the other, but I'm continuing to focus with the funding we have right now, the budget that we're writing, working with my council colleagues to make sure that we are prioritizing both. We cannot choose one over the other.
Right. So I'm hearing no, you're not.
Agnostic. I'm going to trust the voters to determine their priorities, but we need to fully invest and fund both. And you are right. We have one of the lowest police officer ratio to residents in the nation. And then we have response times that are not meeting our minimum expectations. That tourist in Waterfront Park deserved and needed an immediate response. We were unable to do it, so we have to improve.
We're hoping to get Chief Dave back on the show. We've had him on.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He was like shooting from the hip, which I appreciated. And so I know these questions would be better directed at him, but I did notice that when I was looking into why police weren't responding to these two high-profile calls, a lot of it had to do with the way they were categorized by 911 calls and stuff. So part of me wonders, it's not, like officers could have come. It's not like they weren't there. They were there, like they could have come, but it seemed like a training issue at a certain point or a communication issue. And to me, when you're down a few people, you strategize. You come up with a different strategy. You're not using the same strategy we're a 20-person team. You're no longer working as a 20-person team. Right. Now you're working as a 10-person team. So I'm just curious what's going on with the police and with 911 if they're blowing these big calls because of the way they're categorizing things, the way they're talking to each other, perhaps until we figure out where we're getting this money to possibly fund. Maybe something should happen there. And I know, again, Mayor, like that's not, that's not on your docket.
No, that is an excellent question. So if you'll indulge me for a quick moment. When I came into office, I had 3 key objectives: end unsheltered homelessness, reduce the burden on our public safety system, revitalize our economy, in that order. Ending unsheltered homelessness, we're having tremendous success in that. We have a shelter bed available for anybody who needs it tonight. And we've seen our numbers drop dramatically. RVs in East Portland, yesterday and Saturday, I only found 2 of those people suffering, and encampments are down. And so we're really seeing a significant reduction in encampments, 80% in the downtown core. We've helped 540 people get back home to 45 different states. Now that's reducing the burden on our public safety system. You talked about our Bureau of Emergency Communications, our 911 calls. Since January, we've experienced month to month between a 4 and 9% call volume. You see, we're reducing that burden, allowing those call takers to listen to the calls, to prioritize the calls. They are excellent. We have one of the best Bureau of Emergency Communication systems in the nation, but we have got to reduce the number of calls, allowing them to do their work faster. Same thing goes for officers. We've done a great job at increasing drug distribution arrests. We've increased those 20% citywide. 60% in Old Town, Chinatown. We've seen our houseless structure fires go from 55 in June of last year to 7 this June. That takes the pressure off of fire. All those things are falling, which takes the pressure off the system writ large, so it can do better and react faster. But we're still dealing with a lot of issues. But Claudia, we haven't had a homicide in Portland in 41 days. In 2022, we had 101. So it's improving, but it's going to take time. And we got to continue to put foot on the pedal and continue to move forward with the programs we put in place. But our whole team, our public safety team, our sheltering team, the city writ large, they are doing great. Street sweeping is increasing. We're really getting back to clean streets and safe places. And so that's how we take the pressure off of our public safety system writ large, so those calls can be responded to quickly. But it's incremental positive steps we have to take.
Right.
Thanks for letting me just kind of go on.
I did let you go on. I'm a generous host. But I just wanted to touch on something you said. You did promise to end, street homelessness in Portland in your first year as mayor. It was your one big platform. I remember when you talked about it here on the show in your mayoral candidate interview. We spoke a lot about the feasibility of that happening. And here we are nearly 2 years later, and Portland is still very much struggling with the homelessness crisis. Though I do think many of your constituents, including me, would agree the appearance of street homelessness has drastically decreased and things do feel better. And I know you go out there now on Sundays, cleaning up things yourself. All of this could be seen as a positive trend. But are you ready to accept the numerical fact that homelessness numbers have actually increased since you started your term?
Yeah, those are numbers through the county, and I think we've gotten really good at counting better. But when I go out onto the streets, I speak to community members, I help those that are suffering on the street. The numbers are dramatically lower when you look at the streets. And so the hope in our community has really increased. But I mean, from the by name list that the county keeps, they've gotten really good at counting service connections, which is really what that number is. But your anecdote, Claudia, means the world to me because it means that you're becoming more hopeful. You see the renaissance, you're participating. Come to downtown on the weekends. It is booming. Or go to Division Midway and you'll see a community improving. Gateway, I was there yesterday. I see people out and about. Those are the measures. And that really got us to that third objective, which was revitalizing our community, which is working. We have the second consecutive reduction in office vacancy quarter by quarter, first time since COVID began. So we're seeing the economic tailwinds that we've all been waiting for by caring for our community. Now, going back to ending on shelter homelessness, my goal was to make sure that we had a shelter available for every person that was ready to come in, and we've succeeded. We had 200 empty beds last night. We're one of only a few major U.S. cities that has shelter available tonight for anybody when they're ready to come in. We're very proud of the guarantee that we're providing to our community members, that if you run into somebody, Claudia, a friend, someone on the street, I can guarantee that you have a resource to help send that person to, instead of on a wait list for a shelter that takes 6 to 12 weeks for somebody to take.
Yeah, but we're still closing shelters, correct? I mean, I know that we're running out of money for these shelters and the numbers are still increasing. So I guess there's a bit of tension there from people who work within the homeless communities, advocacy groups, and also, organizations that provide resources, worried that perhaps we put a lot of money into something that, though it's there for everybody, isn't readily being used.
Yeah, we've had just in the overnight shelters. Now we've opened overnight. We've opened 24/7 shelters, women's shelters, recovery only shelters. We've really provided shelter to meet that person. But in the time that we've opened these shelters, we've had over 5,000 people stay in them, over 100,000 safe nights of sleep provided for somebody who would otherwise be on the street. So I would say it's working. And anecdotally, at the beginning of this question, you started talking about the hope you see on the street, which is visible.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't specifically saying hope. I was just saying, I know that people are saying, hey, things look better. I know things are looking better. Personally, for my neighborhood, things are not looking better. I live in St. John's and things are actually looking worse. But that's anecdotally, I wouldn't bring that in because it's not the whole city, But if you're talking about me like, Claudia, what do you think? I'm like, well, things are not looking great here, Keith. Things are not looking awesome in St. John's. But that's anecdotally. That's not the numbers. Numerically speaking, we have more homelessness now than before. And I know what you're saying, Keith. You're just like, hey, they're just getting really good at counting. Sorry for laughing. They're getting really good at counting homeless people. What am I supposed to do here? The one thing that no one's going to argue with you is that you don't love this city. I know that you love this city, Keith. And I wouldn't spend my Sundays doing that if I were the mayor. I wouldn't, I would be done. Well, weekends would be for me, know?
Let me provide two responses, and I'll take it from the last, and then I'll go back to the first. The first one is Claudia, if we even have one person suffering on the street, we have work to do. And I think any number you want to provide to me just tells me we have a lot of work to do. So let's continue to do the work. I'm not looking at numbers. I'm just moving resources to provide care to Portlanders. And you're right. Very passionate about that. Now let's go back to St. John's. I know where I'm going to be this coming Sunday. I will be focusing my time in St. John's. I grew up in St. John's, so I'm very aware of every corner, whether it's the St. John's Bridge, Buchanan, whatever. I spend time there. I haven't been there in the last month or so. I'll be there this weekend, providing care and connection and resources to those people that are suffering in your community to make sure that all four corners of the city need to have the same resources provided to them. It's not just about downtown. It's not just about Southeast, Northeast. It's about every Portlander deserves to live and thrive in our city.
Nice. Well, I know that you have limited time. You've already hung out with us for so long, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Mayor Wilson,
Claudia,
for hanging out with us. You are welcome back on anytime. You want to check
Claudia,
in?
I appreciate you and I appreciate your forum. You are a pro. You do a great job, and thanks for letting me join you.
Of course.